Welcome to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Discover the personal drive, professional journeys, and business strategies that have made a real impact. It's success from the inside out.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're chatting with Robert Price. Robert is the founder and CEO of Bode Canada, along with several other endeavors. Robert, welcome to the show. And do you want to start off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been doing?
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Great to be here. Bode is a platform that makes it very easy and convenient to buy and sell property fully online, whether you're an individual homeowner or a home builder. We've modernized that whole process with all the data, tools, and mechanisms required for buyers and sellers to directly connect and transact. So that's our passion, and great to be here.
Interesting time of the platform. Well, first of all, how long have you been up and running with the platform itself?
We've been in the market for about 3 years, a little over 3 years. Launched right at the start of COVID. Perfectly predicted that timing, and but so around that time, and we're available in Alberta, BC, Ontario. Expanded our platform and our tech and our team and everything that we've done pretty rapidly in that time period, and have now done about $1 billion in sales with both the homeowner part of our business and the consumer individual homeowner standpoint. So.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. That's quite a bit of growth then. So do you guys operate as a brokerage, or how does that work from the regulatory side?
Yeah, technically we're licensed, but we have access to, as a result, access to the data, access to all listings, both on our platform and when a homeowner sells their platform or sells their property with us. But fundamentally, we're a tech and data business. So that's more by necessity in order to meet regulations, make sure we're fully in line. But basically, our team is engineers, data scientists, digital marketers. It's a composition of what you would know as a tech company.
Right. Yeah. So tech meets real estate kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So who's your primary customer right now? Like, who are you seeing engaging on that, sell on your own type of market?
Yeah, it's been interesting because when we started it, we very much had the millennial crowd, myself included, in mind with our cell phones as an extension of our body. So very much we're kind of playing into the preference of or meeting the preference of that generation to buy and sell property, buy and sell anything online, really, whether it's Amazon or Airbnb or booking flights through Expedia or consuming content. It was really looking at this as the last big obvious item that needed modernization and needed to meet the behavior of what now is the biggest market segment, which are millennials in terms of buying and owning properties. So that was the initial target, but it's been interesting because we actually have quite a blend. We've had everywhere from 20-year-olds selling their properties with us all the way up to people over 70 with an iPhone 6 and no laptop. So in this case, it was a apartment in Canmore in a couple of weeks, fully just on an old iPhone. So that was one of our Hall of Fame stories of where basically they had out-of-date tech and were not necessarily technically advanced and still had a very successful experience. I think part of that is when people have bought and sold properties, typically in Canadian averages every 5 years, they get familiar with it, they get comfort with it, and because smartphones are now over 95% in Canadians' hands, it's been a wider demographic than we anticipated, which has been awesome.
Yeah, that's really good from a market standpoint for sure. What have you seen in terms of the growth over those few years? Like, did you come out of the gate with really strong numbers, or has it really ramped up as word of mouth goes out?
Yeah, we took the old tech adage of when you start, or at least one that we subscribe to, is getting to market if you're in the market and have launched and you're not embarrassed with what you've launched with, you've waited too long. So we were very much in that headspace of let's get to market as early as possible. And it took us 6 months from the first line of code we wrote to actually being live, which is
That's
very
pretty
fast.
impressive. Wow. Yeah.
And then we were, it was very even alpha, not even beta product at that point, but really we wanted to get customer feedback in really early so that we were building with our customers, and as opposed to us taking 2 years and being in our own echo chamber of what we think the market wants, actually
Yeah.
get in front of true customers with a fresh set of eyes and see how crazy we are. So that was the first year or two, and we actually sold our first 4 properties in the first month, which
Okay.
is which is awesome. But I would say in the last couple years, we've really accelerated our growth. Um, just in 22 and 23, doubling our business again, and now set up to yet again double this year and continue to expand across geographies.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. What has that feedback been, or maybe some of that early feedback that has caused some of the modifications, or what is that? What have you guys done there?
Yeah, thousands of conversations. It's been
Mhm.
starting with, I think, most people um, really wanted the ability to control the experience end to end. So we started with the philosophy of you don't need to reach out to us only if you want to. So every
Mhm.
step that we've taken has created this autonomous experience. And then we found that people wanted to interact with us more than we expected with these early listings. So what we did was really build out our content repository, build out hundreds of articles, videos, how-tos, tool tips to make it really easy for them to simply absorb and essentially democratize the market data and how this all works. And that's all now culminated in the last 6 months with AI. And
Right.
what's been really crazy to watch, feeding AI with all of that content that we built up over years of all the different questions and all the feedback so that it has the intelligence to answer those questions. We've had it
Mm.
crawl regulations. We actually had it pass a realtor exam a couple of weeks ago. So that it's been crazy to see how fast and smart, or how smart it's gotten, how quickly it's got there.
Yeah.
So that was one early test. Another big test was were people comfortable showing their property, and really we took inspiration from Airbnb on this. If you're comfortable having somebody sleep in your bed and brush their teeth with your toothbrush and do do all of the things that people do in your house, which hundreds of millions of people are around the world,
Yeah.
then what's a 15-minute walkthrough with you either present or down the street with a remote lock or what have you.
Yeah.
But that was a key question for us, and interestingly, it hasn't been an issue at all for our sellers. So, yeah, two of many examples.
Yeah, interesting. So really, from a high level, what you guys are also doing then is you're bringing the information to the masses, so that me as a somebody that now decides, am I going to list my house on my own, or am I going to use a realtor? There's probably not a lot of that information out there because it's been probably fairly guarded by the realtors in the past. But now you're providing that information out to somebody to say, here's how I would go about doing that, and here's the steps to take. Does that include support finding like lawyers and comparables and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have what we also call the pro marketplace. So inspections, appraisals, lawyers, all of the professional services you need around both insurance and mortgage as well. So we've put that all
Mhm.
together
Yeah.
um, so that you have everything at your disposal. We look at the top 5 rated pros in each city that we're in, and partner with them to be fully available on platform. So yeah, I think that's an important point. I think your other point about data is it's a big thing that we've been challenged with, I think, in Canada in general. In Canada,
Yeah.
just across the board, we have really bad data.
Yeah.
If you compare us just to the US as one example, across the board, we're just very weak in that respect. So part of our passion here is if you have all the sold data and you have all the comparable information, now you have the direct access to what you need. And because we have the model, the opposite model of where an agent would say, hire me, I'm the expert. And in a
Mhm.
lot of cases, they are. Instead of looking at it that way, look at it the other way and say, actually, the homeowner's smart. If they have the information that they need, then they've got all the advantages that they would get with hiring an agent, but for much less money, more transparency, more control. Of course, you're seeing every deal come in.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, one interesting thing that we've seen is our sellers actually sell for a higher property value than with agents, in addition to commission savings, because that last $50,000 is critical to them. And because that's tax-free equity, as you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus an agent that makes sure they want to sell that property. So that's been an interesting thing we didn't necessarily anticipate, but it's
Yeah.
one of the factors that happens when you unlock data like this and people can make informed decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you think about the role that a realtor plays in something, and obviously the commission that they earn from that. Pretty protective industry, I would say, because the realtor industry in general doesn't want people to get into this, because obviously that's where they're making their fees. But I've always thought there's this inherent conflict between a selling agent and a seller. So, me selling my house and then the agent that's representing me sell my house, because like you just said, to me, that last 50,000, or let's even say 10,000, that last 10,000 on that house is a lot to me, because that's $10,000 of cash in my pocket, tax free, that, I can now do something with. To the realtor, it's almost nothing. If they're on, say, a typical 4% fee, they're going to be split two and two. So now you're down to 2% of $10,000 is $200. The realtor
Mhm.
just wants to sell the damn house. They don't care about the extra $200 if they can just get the house sold. I care a lot about the 10,000. So it's always an interesting situation that I think you always have that inherent conflict in, and it seems like you guys have kind of solved that.
Yeah, we just look at it as, again, we don't have anything against agents. We're
Yeah.
just pro homeowner and modernization. And I look at, and we work with agents all the time. We have thousands of agents accounts on platform. In fact, some of them have uh, sold their own property with us, and of course have bought properties through us as well.
Mhm.
But fundamentally, people respond to incentives, and that's a lot of what we're seeing in the American litigations that are happening against, yeah, and the National Association of Realtors. There's been multiple billions paid out with class action lawsuits from homeowners wanting choice, wanting transparency,
Mhm.
talking about price fixing, and really that's just, for me, it's a structural and regulatory challenge of, if you're having the seller pay the buy side agent, for one, the buy side agent saying they're free is not true, because the seller is paying the buy side agent, but of course the buyer is paying the seller.
Yeah.
So that the money just going in a loop. And secondly, if you have a variable rate on the buy side, so it's at 2% in your example, now that buy side number, now that buyer representative is actually negotiated against the buyer. Is that a
Yeah.
million bucks? They'd rather you spend 1.1, they make more money. So they're
Yeah.
actually working for the sell agent. So all of that has just become, it's a relic of the way that this industry used to work when it was a human network instead of a digital network in
Mhm.
the 70s, 80s, 90s. And what's happened is, with property value growth going up by 400 to 500%, depending on where you are in Canada, those
Yeah.
commission rates have stayed the same at the same time, all while in parallel, we're all doing, as Canadians, we're all shopping online. We're using all these online mechanisms
Yeah.
to find
We're doing a lot
property,
of the work ourselves, right?
do the work, to do the research, and that's really what's creating this gap between the value of the old way of buying and selling property and where we are today. So we're the ones passionately pursuing that gap, recognizing that we're not trying to be everything to everybody, because there will continue to be lots of people that want representation and want that model.
Mhm.
But our
Mhm.
our research would suggest that about 50% of Canadians would prefer to sell directly online if they had all the tools at their disposal that we offer. So that's
Yeah.
really what we're looking at, and I'm interested in your thoughts as well. Like, as we look at home unaffordability, we're all faced with inflation. higher taxes, capital gains taxes are going up, as
Mhm.
Canadians are really uh, faced with a much higher cost of existence. So this is a huge piece of the cost. 90% of your cost when you sell a property is paying commission. So interested in your thoughts on the pressures there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, as we move towards data and electronic modes of being able to view properties and whatnot, and really probably starting back in maybe the mid to late 90s, it really pushing that direction. I mean, you're right. If I want to go and buy a house, I'm going to do the research first before I probably even reach out to a realtor, and I'm going to have a bunch of houses that I want to look at. So it's almost we're almost able to do the commoditization of it. Right? I think you had a better term for it earlier. Democratization, that's what you called it earlier. Democratization of this data and the
Mhm.
process. And I think one issue that a lot of people have is if you look over the last, let's say 4 years, I'll call it that COVID period. I mean, you had realtors that they were getting 18 offers on a property, and they're flipping in a couple days at a time, and they're making a $30,000-$40,000 commission out of it. It's like, come on, guys, like you gotta, I have no issue with people getting paid, but there's got to be the value there that they're actually doing in order for that. And well, I'm not sure what you've seen, and I'm not trying to talk bad about realtors at all, because there's a lot of really, really good realtors out there, but I have seen it where you've got realtors that came into the market during COVID. They were in this period where houses were flying like crazy, and now that that's slowed down, especially in the larger centers like the Toronto or Calgary, a little to a degree where you're sitting, um, they don't even know how to do some of these offers because they're so used to not having a market, not having to really do a lot of work on it. And I think you're seeing a lot of people fall off because of that. So I think you're right. Some people are always going to want to use a realtor and have that representation, and that's good. But there is always going to be the segment of the market that says, no, I think I can do this on my own. And I
Yeah,
guess maybe sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to add to that. Yeah, you nailed it in the way that I think as well. The best analogy is Uber, right? Uber and
Yeah.
the taxi services. Uber came in, and you're not doing everything on your own. You're using technology to create an easy and tracked and
Mhm.
transparent experience. So it's not the, call it, FISBO model. It's the fully immersive online supported experience. And what we've seen, and that was really our initial vision, is let's provide an alternative option to the market, and let's create some optionality. Let's create some choice in a industry that, in my view, desperately needs it. And
Yeah.
then knowing that we'll make this same technology available to other brokerages. We've had many other brokerages come back to us and say, "We love your platform. Can we use it? How can we license it? How does this work?" And similarly with Uber
Okay.
now, with taxi cabs, you see taxis coming to Uber saying, "We tried to build our app. We're not good at this. We're expert in transportation, not in technology. So can we license your tech?" And now you're creating an elevated. You just elevated the whole sector with that. So that's really our biggest picture passion, is the overall lift, raising the tide, which in my mind desperately needs it, especially in Canada where we have huge debt per household,
Yeah.
highest of the G8 countries.
Yeah.
And then we have this inflationary environment we're talking about. So, really important for us to be smart and have choice and advance this this whole thing in the real estate domain.
Yeah. Yeah. You see on the buyer side, are you still typically seeing people that are represented by agents coming to see the homes, and what subsect is not like that? What subsect is people that are on their own?
Yeah, it's both. So we make it very easy for the self-represented buyer. Most of Canadians start searching online without representation. Similar to your example, you were just walking through, you do your research, you start with, where do I want to live? And then you
Yep.
say, now within those communities, what can I afford? What's interesting? What do I love? And then the the traditional way would be, now I've got to find somebody to go open that door. Uh, and that's the representation model. In ours, you simply continue through to, if it's a Bode listing, message, book showings, and even make offers directly with that seller. So we've seen 30 to 40% of our buyers don't have representation. And because we make that free, that's
Wow.
now 1% versus 4 to 5 to 6%, depending on where you are in the
Yeah.
country. And that's where the massive savings and ultimately the transaction is actually smoother because there's fewer moving parts, there's fewer schedules, there's
Yeah.
fewer opinions. They're using the same market data that's available on Bode, so they have a meeting of the minds that happens earlier, and so the deal happens faster. They save more money, and that's great. If there's a buyer representative, they also deal directly with our sellers all the time. They have thousands of those as well. So now, as a seller, you have the choice of an offer without representation, offer with. One of those comes with a much bigger cost,
Yeah.
but the specifics of the deal obviously are going to be how you decide what path you go forward. What is the maximum value ultimately to you in the end, including those commission costs?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I would not have thought it was that high, 30 to 40%. I would have thought it was significantly lower than that, but I think it makes sense. And you're probably seeing a shift towards that. And in reality, I mean, I guess if I'm a buyer coming without representation and you're the seller, I can probably get a better deal on that house versus the guy next to me that is using a realtor, right? Because we know what that delta is, that 2% there. So now you're cutting, let's say you're on a $500,000 house and your typical commission's 4%, so it's 20 grand there. Now you're cutting that right down potentially as low as 1% of that, right? So as low as 5 grand. Is that right?
Exactly. So it'd be 5. And now and what we often see is the sellers and buyers share in that profit. Like in that
Yeah.
example, they end up at, call it 490. The seller made more and the buyer got a better deal. They
Yeah.
both won.
Everybody wins. Yeah.
Everybody wins. So that's
Which is really, I mean, what is inherently happening right now, or in the traditional commission model, is the houses are more expensive because the commissions get put into that price, right? So when you pull the commissions out, your market price in theory can come down because there's the same amounts of cash to go around from to the seller perspective.
exactly. No, that's absolutely right. And a big part of how do we create an efficient marketplace? At the end of the day, it's you got to have the deals need to be faster, they need to be more transparent, and they need to be more cost effective.
Yeah.
So that's really our agenda in all this.
And are your listings on MLS because you're a brokerage? Yeah.
Yes,
So there's no difference between listing with you and listing with an agent in terms of visibility.
exactly. And then we do professional photos and measurements included in that. We have QR based signage, so a massive QR code that you can see from the highway, basically hit
Yeah.
it with your phone. That gets you directly to the seller, and then you can, in one click, book a showing. So it's really everything that we're doing is removing steps and friction in a process that has so much fragmentation and multiple people, and really taking inspiration on that one from many countries around the world that have no buy side agents at all.
Okay.
Scandinavia, the UK, New Zealand, Australia don't have any buy side agents. It doesn't exist. You just have a list agent, and then the buyer deals directly with the list agent or with an individual seller. So that's very very comparable countries to us that unlocked and democratized this, using that word again, brought the data forward to the market and really turned loose this more efficient marketplace. So we're wanting to be the lightning rod for that in Canada.
Yeah. Very cool. I want to switch directions just for a second, and something you had touched on earlier that I'm sure you knew I was going to hit at some point is the lawsuits going on down in the States, and we'll maybe focus on the one that got most of the headlines, which is the National Association of Realtors. I think that was maybe a few months ago. Now that came out, maybe first of all, let's give an overview. I'm assuming you're relatively educated on that one, so give an overview of what happened there, and then your feedback about it.
Yeah, it's really homeowners banding together that are saying the data or the availability of choice, the price fixing, the lack of transparency. We've had enough. This needs to change, and the misrepresentation on the buy side of it being free as opposed to money that just goes in a loop and is actually half the cost of the transaction. that's really where it came from. And so that challenge is happening at the association level. They've paid out almost 500 million to settle and made two changes. One is they're no longer able to systemically advert and privately offer buy side commission in the system. Now that's no longer allowed. All that the aim there is to prevent steering of agents on the buy side if if they're not able to get maximum commission.
Yeah.
So that's one big change. The second big change is before a buyer sees a house, a buy side agent needs to have them sign a contract that has them understand what they are paying for their services.
Oh, so
In
the fee is fully outlined.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the practice, as you probably know, today is kind of a handshake deal. I'll help open doors for you as a buy side agent. In reality,
Mhm.
all that gets papered at the end through the conveyance package.
Mhm.
So this is now forcing that to happen legally at the outset. And the same things are happening in Canada. So the same lawsuit, same copycat, both sides of the transaction uh, across the country. It's a national level class action suit now at this point with all the same claims. So CREA in Canada is facing the same challenges as the National Association of Realtors, which is its American counterpart, and they're affiliated. So many of
Yeah.
the same rules, regulations, practices exist at the state level as they do at the province level in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. And just high level for everybody. So CREA is Canadian Real Estate Association. Same thing as the US, like you said, on the NAR side. Real estate's always governed at that provincial or state level, but they've got that overarching body. So it's, I think there's lawsuits going on kind of at all levels, but the big ones are at the national level right now. So I'm going to ask you a challenging question then, because you brought it up a bit on, um, like previously, if I'm on the sell side and there's buying agents looking on the back end in the MLS system, they're able to see what I'm offering as a commission. Now that's going away, but it's not gone in Canada yet. So what happens with your products? Like, are you not worried that you're getting less sellers agents approaching those properties because of the lower commission structure?
Well, we let them decide what they offer. So a seller determines
I
what they
see.
like to offer on the buy side. Today is our practice. So some sellers offer $1, others offer full rate, some offer flat, but on average, they're saving 20 to 30% of that commission when an agent
Yeah.
is involved.
Yeah.
And then when there's no agent, it's free, as we talked about earlier. So
Yeah.
that's the way it's dealt with today. And part of this regulatory change that should happen is why are we confusing all of these payments, making it so difficult for consumers when the job of the regulator is actually to protect the consumer? They're doing the
Yeah.
opposite of that. The simplest way to solve this problem is have the buyer pay the buy side agent directly, have the seller pay the sell side agent directly,
Hmm.
and then now you have a fee for service model that's fully understood right at the outset, and you have a functional service model as opposed to this very confusing thing
Yeah.
that happens every 5 years on average for Canadians, where
Yeah.
you have to remember and re-educate yourself on this big loop of money. So that's a big part of where the legal pressure is coming from in both countries.
Yeah. And maybe what it does is push more people onto self-representation on the buyer side, right? Which ultimately, especially if you're moving into a platform where it is fee for service, people might choose not to pay that fee to a buyer's agent to be able to do it on their own, at least at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I think it unlocks in your 500,000 example. If you were to say at the outset, that'll be $10,000 to pay me directly to help open these doors and write a contract. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people that would say, "What? Why am I doing that?"
Yeah.
And so that's a scary, that's a big instrument for change here. But I think the functional what would happen out of that is you'd end up with different pricing models to create more choice again. So a buy side agent might say for X dollars per hour, or a single flat rate upon success, or a
Yeah.
blend. Now you're coming up with a more competitive model there, and then you have a company like Bode where if you want to do everything just fully online with all the data and take it all the way through, you've got that option as well. Now in the consumer world, they've got a much more vibrant marketplace to work from.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many active listings would you like across the provinces there that you're in? How many active listings would you guys have on the go?
We're typically between 350 and 500 listings
Yeah.
across all of our markets that are selling and moving through. We're doing in
Yeah.
the range of 100 sales a month right now. So we should do over 1,000 this year.
Yeah.
And that's our goal. But the longer term goal is hitting all markets in Canada and also expanding to the US and continuing to bring this choice and modernize the industry play. So that's where
Yeah.
we're at.
Is there a lot of people in the market doing this, or are there just a few players because of, I mean, it's a high barrier to entry, right? There's a lot of regulation that goes on in real estate. So how many people are actively doing what you're doing?
None that we know of. The alternative models have been very much discount agent based.
Yeah.
So a Redfin or a Purple Bricks style where you get a kind of a remote agent, you pay something less for that, and then you get some discounted services as a result of that. We're the first one to truly say end to end everything you need, including the professional services as you talked about,
Yeah.
for the actual transaction. And AI is really going to be a key part of that. And just in terms of if you have everything tracked on the platform and available to our users, you can give them that information back so they have all the unique data insights to take action directly. So really, we're not, as I mentioned earlier, we're not against agents. We're
Hmm.
for homeowners, and if you have that perspective, then you're building this platform that's versatile and available, that will make available to other brokerages and other stakeholders in the way that it can advantage them too.
Yeah. And what do you think this will do for, the future of realtors? And I'll preface that by saying, and I don't know the stats on this, but it's something like 70% of agents don't actually make a sale in the given year, and the average agent does like two sales per year or something like that. So do you think it'll force just the agents that are dabbling in it out, and then the experienced agents will thrive on that? Or what do you think the outcome will be?
Yeah, the numbers are pretty crazy when you look at it. It's like somewhere in the range of 10% of agents are doing 90% of the business.
Yeah.
So it's even more aggressive than your stats. And so really, to me, when you modernize each of these points in the process, where technology is powerful, if you're creating convenience and efficiency, then
Hmm.
everybody around it, including the agent, advantages from it because they don't want to do all the logistics and the administrative, all the stuff that they're doing all the time. I think
Yeah.
it's, I think this is the opportunity to elevate technology and then unlock more of the best agents to do more deals because now they have more time and the consumer will have more transparency in that interaction.
Mhm.
They've created, they've become the co-pilot on the airplane as opposed to driving the bus. I don't know how well that analogy kind of fits together, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
It
it's
makes
more of
sense.
an
It makes sense.
it's more of an advisory role. And then
Yeah.
I think as a result of that, you'll end up with more specialization where
Yeah.
you have somebody that's really good at negotiating, somebody that's really sharp on the pricing side, on the home
Hmm.
staging side, on a number of those topics, the true intellectual and challenging topics. And then there will be different pricing models around that as opposed to today, which is every agent effectively has the same service
Yeah.
paradigm, same pricing, same service offering, and they do everything for you. There's no kind of breaking apart that bundle. I think technology will enable and create more unbundling and elevate the very best talent in this space, and others that aren't able to compete probably end up doing something else.
Yeah. Which ultimately, as consumers, is what we want, right? You're fine to pay as long as the value is there, and typically those top performers are providing that value. So, yeah, I think that's ultimately what we want as consumers.
100%, and at the end of the day, I can talk about how much I love my company, but companies don't change industries, consumers do, people do. They demand, and we're seeing that in these litigations, as we talked about. They've had enough. They're pushing so hard that they're litigating to get some change and some, unlocking of this industry. And so we're just a vehicle for that pain and that passion for change. And that's really where it always comes back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Robert, it's been awesome to have you today. If somebody wanted to reach out, find more about Bode or reach out to you, where would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, likewise, Matt. It's been awesome. For us, it's Bode.ca is our platform. If you're interested in connecting it and or following with me, I'm on LinkedIn, often talking about national market data and regulations and what's going on with AI and modernization in this space, kind of across the investor, builder, and homeowner spectrum. So hit me up there. We have all the socials as well, but that's kind of the gist of it. So again, thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. We'll have to have you back on in maybe 6 months or 12 months or something like that, and see how everything's going, especially with the AI trend.
Love to. Sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert.
Thank
you. You've been listening to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Want to be our next guest? Visit beyondwealthpodcast.ca/guest. See you on the next episode.